pages. I'm going to end that or do what I have to. Okay. Well, okay. I'm trying to get rid of that thing on my screen. It says got it. Now I got it. Now what's the next thing I gotta do here? What do I do now?
Just talk.
Top?
Does it still say something?
Yeah,
It
it still
says
says,
this meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant.
So you just have to,
now I got it. Okay,
Okay.
back to work here. Okay. All right, thank you guys. Okay. My train of thought. All right, so the Natural Resource Overlay District is 22 pages long. I encourage you to get it from your staff, not because it's good reading, it's terrible reading, because it's legalese, but it defines 32 chapters of approach to dealing with various things. Okay, let's take a look at the first slide here. Slide number 1.
hang on, she's got to share her screen first. And
Okay, no problem.
Sorry, in the meantime, I'm also trying to get the YouTube video to start. So I'll be working on that, but I will share my screen here.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Pretty good. How are you?
Excellent. Doing well. Got here just in the nick of time.
You did.
Okay, that first page describes what the NROD document is, and I'm trying to be very brief about many things here. And then the summary of the whole thing I described to you, it's an ordinance that has 32 sections that relate to different issues and so forth. The issue that I want to share with you is some of us in the area, Oregon City, and elsewhere for that matter, Metro in particular, Brian Vaughn, some of you know Brian, feel like these ordinances need to be brought more current. And where possible, some of the language might be changed. And the process for doing that, I want to share with you, according to Aquila, the community development director, when we met with her 3 weeks ago, myself, Doug Neely, part of this task force, Roger Fowler from the Parks Foundation. They're the ones that have taken Waterford Park and many other places and done wonderful things with them in the city and raised money for parks. Myself, from Rivers of Life Center, I have a nonprofit that is called Rivers of Life Center Youth Training and Education Program. I'm the one that worked for 24 years to design with others, build and then manage the Environmental Learning Center, which is now run by the college. So I've had a lot of experience in these kind of things. And the last person, of course, last two people, Nancy Brochat. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, it's Brochat. It's just phonetic.
Okay, Brochat. Thank you, Nancy. And also Steve Williams from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. He's a retired director, is now a member of PRAC. We're a team that have come together to look at what we can do to improve this document. And I see a number of documents on the screen right now, flashing through. We're going to go to page 2. Kelly. Is that possible? Page 2? There we are. Okay, page 2. These are the chapters of the ordinance. What we did was just Craig and I, Craig in particular, just excerpted from them. We're going back and forth here. That's all right. Wait until we stabilize here. Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay, those 32 chapters have different functions. The most important one talks about the purpose. And then the second one talks about important documents. That one's circled there. The ordinance number in our our comprehensive plan is 17.49.0 all the way through 17.49.265. I'm going to describe a new chapter that we talked about a bit with some language that was suggested. But these chapters look at all the things you might expect to interact with when you're running into development as it interfaces with the environment. The amazing thing is most of these chapters go to page 3. Page 3. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much. Page 3 there is that these chapters, though they describe in very distinct condition, natural environments and some aspects of stormwater management facilities, they generally don't talk about built or constructed environments. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is environments that have come together through people's help or through contractors' work. And they're not just sites that had to be built. They're things that the community came together and constructed. I'll give you some examples here very soon that have biological function. Food, water, cover, layered canopy, native plants have a diversity of zones within them, not all groomed. And those built environments are not at all reflected in this ordinance. And Brian Vaughn from Metro feels, and so do I, and a few others on this subcommittee I just mentioned, Nancy Bouchot, Doug Neely, Roger Fowler from the Parks Foundation, Steve Williams from PRAC, and myself feel that there ought to be some element that gives credit and validation to built environments that are creating and establishing a function. In the case of stormwater facilities, I'm trying to read that one there, stormwater facilities, okay. Yeah, I think you go halfway down there, you'll see it on that page or so. There's 150 stormwater management facilities in Oregon City. They're not sewers, they're not culverts. They may connect to those things, but there are areas where water naturally infiltrates or somehow it's bioremediated before it goes into the stormwater system, which then affects the water quality entering into places like Clackamas Cove, the Clackamas River, all the various streams, Abernathy, and many other small urban streams that are part of Oregon City. Many of those stormwater facilities have developed, that's 17.49.155. They've developed a lot of natural values because the native plants that were planted originally have been managed well, or frankly, not managed, which was even better. And the grasses and so forth that were in there were not the number one substrate. It was in fact ground covers that were native. And the long and short of it is those stormwater facilities are not just improving water, they're serving as cover and resources for invertebrates, for small mammals, for certainly birds. And we're going to give you some examples. So again, I'm going very quickly. Number 4, Kelly, thank you. Okay, number 4, and I'm going to ask Nancy to help me with this thing. I've had a bunch of eye surgery things, you guys, and I'm suffering right now. And number 4 right there, which is now for you to see. Can you just read, if you don't mind, the entry part of that, Nancy, from the ordinance chapter down through number 8? Can you do that? Can Nancy hear that? Can anybody?
I was
hear?
muted. Okay, I'm good. I was muted.
Okay, all right. Can you read that chapter 17.49.020, 1 through 8?
Yeah, so these are the NROD identifying documents. One is the 1999 Oregon City Local Wetland Inventory. 2, the Oregon City Water Quality Resource Area Map. 3, 2004 Oregon City Slope Data and Mapping. It's the LIDAR data. 4, Metro Regionally Significant Habitat Map. 5, the National Wetland Inventory. 6, Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan. 7, Park Place Concept Plan, and 8, South End Concept Plan.
Thank you, Nancy,
So-
for that. We won't go beyond that. The reason is John Van Staveren from Pacific Habitat Resource, he does a lot of work in Oregon and Washington on these issues. He defines what is a natural resource overlay district element, what qualifies, what does not. He does habitat design. He's just excellent. He did a lot of the work 3 years ago at the Environmental Learning Center to add more diversity to what we had built over the 24 years that I was involved there, which is just excellent what they did. He's suggesting a new element called number 9. Now let me explain these 1 through 8 for just a second. These are all required documents to refer within the process, the Natural Resource Overlay District 2. Now, the last 3 or so have to do with concept plans that Metro required before major development occurred. One is on Beaver Creek Road from the college out to Henry C. Road, including the new senior high school, the Oregon City Senior High School. Another one is the so-called Park Place Master Plan, which is a hillside, beautiful site. And the intention there was to densify it hugely with, I'm talking about several thousand units there on what's really rural land. And that project is not moving forward. But my point being, in this listing of concept plans that are to be included, there's no reference to built environments. John thinks that should change, and I do too. Let's go to the next slide, number 5. All right, would you read the new thing here? Would you read number 9? Nancy?
Okay, so number 9, created, constructed, community, or otherwise built environments that demonstrate biological function are to be considered for the NROD evaluation and conclusion. So this is what you want to add, right, Jerry?
This is correct. And this is what I'm trying to get to here. This is only beginning of looking at what we could do to adjust the ordinance. Being realistic, not everything, single thing needs to be done. It's just a few areas. This one in particular, because it talks about the inclusion of things that have happened because of people's efforts. And a lot of us attitude, mine in particular, is if we have a chance to enlist people in doing something and build an environment, which I'll give you some examples of, why in the world wouldn't we want to include it as an important element? Not just because it was built by the community, but that it has a biological function that's contributing to the health and welfare of not just people, but wildlife in our city. That's kind of the idea. So let me, before I leave this slide, say, we're looking for other people from this group and others that might be willing to help us. We're going to meet the last Friday of this month at Oregon City Brewing Company, where we'll have some fun, but also look at some of the things that are coming together. Steve Williams, myself, Nancy, former Mayor Doug Neely, Roger Fowler from the Parks Foundation, and try to continue to look at some additional language. We welcome any help any of you might want to give us, because this is the Bible for how Oregon City handles its natural resource areas. If it isn't current or can be made even better, it's going to make a big difference. And in light of climate change and everything else going on in our world right now, it's time to look at what we can do to build and enhance environments, especially build them where they don't exist or they've been modified to the point that they don't exist. All right, next slide, number 6. All right, okay, here's some new wording that has to do with the business of how we maintain areas. Nancy and I and others discussed this issue. Steve Williams from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, retired, who's on PRAC's board, felt real strongly about this area. This has to do with developing a new chapter that would establish some parameters for when areas are created or they've been identified as pre-existing values, and they can be enhanced, or they already are great the way they are, or they're new ones to be built. What happens to them over time? How many of you heard the term groomscaping? Groomscaping. That doesn't mean we're scaping the groom. That's not a bridal story here. That means, as in the case of some of the parks that you've seen throughout your lives, my life too, of course, we sometimes groom right up to the base of the trees. Nothing at the base of the trees but turf. That works fine in some settings, but it doesn't provide for a layered canopy and the attitudes that could be present if a different approach was taken. The ordinance has nothing in it about how to maintain areas. Now, at the Environmental Learning Center, I developed a class called Environmental Landscaping, which had to go through state certification, and it was all about unlandscaping, approaching things with a more natural theme, a little bit of the Xerces Society, a lot of the National Wildlife Federation type attitudes, and the whole deal was we're really choking out the benefits of birds, invertebrates, mammals, and so forth when we make things too clean. Nancy, would you read this new language?
Okay. This overall ordinance is established to protect and support natural resource areas of Oregon City, be they created, built environments, pre-existing or identified resources. All areas so identified under this NROD ordinance should be protected, developed, and importantly maintained for best biological function. Heavy grooming or altering of native plants, trees, and features must be avoided to maintain the biological structure of the area. Layered canopies with trees emerging from an established or built understory are to be encouraged. Existing stormwater facilities that have developed a layered canopy structure of wetland, emergent or upland growth are to be maintained for best biological function, as well as stormwater management. Existing of down woody materials, including logs, branches, and other naturally occurring debris, should be encouraged wherever practical to create environments for invertebrates, mammals, and bird nesting.
Thank you, Nancy. Think about 1 year and 1 month ago, what happened? We had a huge ice storm, which impacted the area over and over again as it swept through the area for about a week. The amount of down woody material was just vast. And the approach that was taken almost throughout the whole region was get rid of it all. Get it all picked up, get it put on the curbside, and or haul it yourself down to a processing center. And in fact, many times, in some cases, not necessarily in the groomed neighborhood scape, but in the more natural wild areas of a neighborhood, some of those materials could be left. Now, am I saying leave a mess? No. I'm saying, for instance, when we're building things now, like to take you all up on Mount Scott in the next 2 months to see 3 miles of trails, built environments all over the place. It's right by Eagles Landing Golf Course. Like to see what we do. We take limbs and debris and we make them into animal houses. We take logs and we manipulate them a bit and leave them there as down woody material because the salamanders and many other things really enjoy that kind of habitat. When things are too clean, it doesn't work. And so this tentative language, this has not been approved by anybody. It's just a concept, would set a new chapter into existence. I think they'd make a huge new approach to the NROD ordinance. It used to be we're going to protect things and where we can enhance, but we never talked about how to maintain things. And I could give you many examples. You would think about them too. Think about Clackamas Park for a moment. There's a new master plan process in place. The architects there, I'm working with them, and so are others, to have them soften the landscape there, the bioscape, create a bioscape. There's 5,000 feet of riverscape, the Clackamas River on one side of Clackamas Park, and another several thousand feet, totaling 5,000 on the Willamette side. Most of it has been groomed away, but it could easily be reestablished. And they, oh my gosh, we put riprap and armor down there. So what? Limbs and debris can get inserted there as cuttings, and those kind of things can be softened in areas where there, for instance, there's an RV center there, RV staging area in that area could certainly be made to look a lot more interesting than just a blank, I'm going to say, desert scape that it is. That's an example where the layered canopy and other approaches could be put into place. And by the way, there's funding. I've been talking about this a lot with people. Gladstone, of all cities, have gotten $10 million worth of improvements from mitigation monies that come out of Portland Harbor Fund, trust fund that was established to help industries themselves clean up their messes. And they also feel like investing upriver where there are other habitats that could benefit from it too. That mitigation funding can make a lot of these things happen. Next slide, number 7. Okay, here's some pictures. I encourage you sometime to visit this place. This is Thayer Road and Maple Lane. This is the biggest bioremediation, I really should say, water management facility in Oregon City. That's a 5-acre built environment. It's about 14 years old. It intercepts drainage from Newell Creek as it leaves the Environmental Learning Center and goes on down into Newell Creek Canyon. The Environmental Learning Center, of course, treats initial runoff from the college. Then this facility, about 4,000 feet away, receives that runoff. And what's been growing in there, oh my goodness, there's cattails, reeds, bulrushes, all sorts of stuff. And the tendency has been to clear that stuff out because it's a water management facility. No, leave it. This is probably becoming one of the best bioscapes in Oregon City. And there's, again, 150 of these that are built throughout the city. This is one example where the bioscape approach, the last part of the ordinance I just mentioned, that language that Nancy read, could make a huge, huge difference. Next slide. Number 8. Okay, number 8, hard to see here. The circle there you go. Thank you very much. Boy, you guys, your technology is great. It's beyond me right now. That circle represents about 200 acres of land that adjoins Highway 213 as it comes up from Home Depot to the top of the hill. It's the site of the Rossman's landfill and all the impacts of Rossman's landfill. There's two different landfills there, which are being proposed, one of them for redevelopment. Rossman's landfill is the center of Abernathy Green. I'm sorry, I had to think for a second. Abernathy Green, in which historically it's mentioned in many diaries, or where the pioneers from 1842 all the way through early 1900s came to reconnoiter, bring themselves back to reality, and then move down the valley or up north into state of Washington. It is in a huge area totaling 1,000 acres between Holcomb Hill, the base of Holcomb Hill, and the Clackamas and Willamette rivers and the Abernathy drainage. Why am I showing you this? I was going to show you some slides, but I couldn't find them. I'm sorry. There is 1,200 feet of vegetation along Abernathy Drive, which would be at the bottom, which goes up to Holcomb Boulevard from Washington Street. This is the Washington Street corridor, all vegetated. Very good habitat, good trees there. There's 8 acres on the backside of the landfill, which they don't know what to do with. They said the city wants us to maintain it as a just a natural feature. I said, did you say maintain it or leave it alone? They said, we don't know which. So why couldn't you make it a major feature to your development, beautified boardwalks and all the rest, and make it a major feature to your development and proclaim Abernathy Green? George Abernathy helped people here put their lives back together as they came across the Oregon Trail. Now on the Washington Street side, which is on your left there of the circle, just right inside the circle, there's 2,500 feet of trees, ground covers, and many plants that have established themselves there. These are all areas that are subject to possibly being removed unless we look at them differently. They're built environments. The city asked the community to get involved in building these things. The community did. And now they've been evaluated. They're not prehistory. They're not historic. No, they're not. They're built in the last 20 years, but they represent Abernathy Green and what it was. So this is a site that I think we need to take a look at in just in terms of how the ordinance treats it. Next slide. And I believe the last one. Okay, what a mess. This is what many of our water detention areas or stormwater facilities look like. And in fact, the down woody materials, the leaves and debris, generally speaking, not being picked up, they're very, very healthy areas. And again, the ordinance does not speak to them. It mostly exempts them. And we think that's time to change that a bit and make sure if there's natural function going on, that it be maintained, that if they're going to be maintained, guess who doesn't know how to maintain them? It ain't the city of Oregon City, it's the landscape trade. The landscape trade has never been taught how to deal with these areas. They're being taught Roundup, curb, crossbow, and other procedures, mechanical procedures like weed eaters, and that's how they maintain things. Do you have any idea how many trees and shrubs in Oregon City's landscape have weed eater blight or mower blight? They've been struck by either the heavy lines or the tires and so forth of mowers. So these are the areas, again, that this change in the ordinance we think could attend to. So here's my final pitch. Being one of you guys from the past, and yeah, you couldn't get rid of me for a long time, but you have temporarily at least. I'd love to see us work together. The process that the community development director, Aquila, and Kelly, and another person called Teresa Montal will put together for us, at least Teresa and Aquila, was these ideas need to come before the Natural Resource Committee because there are body that advises. I said, good. Then they need to go to the city commission with a little more detail, with a general concept, and then ask the city commission to allow the planning staff, the professionals beyond us that know how to change the language and make these things work, and then bring them back for adoption. That's what we were told was the process. So I'm inviting you all, those that want to participate, come down to Oregon City Brewing Company on the last Friday of this month at 5 o'clock. We'll get together, have a little bit of fun and talk about a few more of these things and move forward, we hope, together. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Jerry?
Yeah, hi, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for coming in and yeah, enlightening us all and the work that you're doing on this. I unfortunately will not be able to attend on that last Friday,
Sure.
much to my chagrin. I already have commitments, but it sounds like that would have been fun.
We'll probably do it every 2 weeks thereafter, every 2 weeks on a Friday.
I agree in general that yes, very much we need to update our maintenance regime across the city. I'm just wondering if you're proposing any kind of prioritization to particular areas or particular ranges within certain features, or are you proposing more of a kind of a broad approach to all the open spaces and park spaces?
I think initially, the ones that are being quite altered from time to time are the stormwater facilities, because with the native plants that get planted, sometimes they're not maintained properly and or cut to the ground, to be honest with you. We think that that's certainly an area of interest. We also think some of the parks ought to reflect a little more of a natural attitude, and it's getting better and better, but the landscape trade is still driving a lot of this thinking. And the landscape trade is not coming up to speed with what the needs of a healthy environment are. So I would have to say at this point, I'm not speaking for the committee because I'm just part of it. But I think a broader approach with a focus on 2 or 3 things that we think could make a difference. I think that last chapter, if you think about that wording, it may not be right, but as a concept, really would change the trend. There's nothing in the ordinance that says a darn thing about how you maintain these areas. And I can think of some beautiful natural resource areas that are now looking like a groomscape, and they shouldn't.
Understood.
Hey, Jerry, thanks for being here and for your presentation. It's really good.
Thank you, guys.
I was curious if you have an example somewhere that has a really good illustration of like in a different jurisdiction or different municipality that you really liked. I imagine that's part of the research you've been doing. So I'm curious if you have like some role models we could look at.
You know, what I would like to do with Nancy's help is forwarded some ideas that we'll look at ourselves, and the photographs we'll look at from other jurisdictions. Westland has some really good examples. Lake Oswego does too. Oregon City does, for that matter, too. But I think what we need to do is send you some good examples of what looks like it works and is working, and then compare it with something that looks much different, more heavily altered. Yes, I would ask you all to, when you drive by Washington Street, between Clackamas Sand and Gravel, you all know where that is probably, where they have various landscape materials, into the Oregon Trail. From the end of the Oregon Trail down to Home Depot, take a look on the right-hand side, and you all of a sudden you'll see a forest there, 2,500 feet long. That forest at this time is scheduled for removal, and it's everything, trees, ground covers, and everything else in between. And I would think that's a question. Why should that have to be removed if there's another way to work within it? Would be an example. Take a look at Clackamas Cove sometime. The east side is denuded, nothing. The trail so-called Clackamas River Trail, beautiful asphalt trail, but very little habitat there. Compare it to walk down a road next to 99E that goes to the old River Resource Museum that we were operating for quite a period of time. We hope to get back there and clean that up. We are cleaning it up, to be honest with you right now. Anyway, take a look at that, because that has a lot more a lot more diverse habitat values and trails and so forth. Those would be examples to take a look at as immediately available to you. And then please stop by Maple Lane and Thayer Road. That thing is beautiful, and it has to be maintained in a new way, or all those values will be lost.
I was curious about language in their ordinances? Like, do you have a role model of what language has been successful in other jurisdictions
I do
that
not.
you feel is
I do
good?
not. I do not, but we need to do that research. Even Milwaukee, down there, Kellogg Lake, you wouldn't believe what they're planning around Kellogg Lake, which is a man-made waterway and ponded area. They're intending to drain that, make it into a flowing stream and build all sorts of beautiful restaurants around it. It's economic development and environment together. Mayor Gamba there has a really effective approach that he's taking on that area of Milwaukee. We'll look into those things. Yes.
So I know a lot of Milwaukee's parks and natural areas are maintained by North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
That's correct.
So, and they have some excellent people there.
Yes.
I'd be happy to connect people there if you don't know already.
Could you help us in that regard? Forward
Yeah.
that to Nancy, if you can forward it to me and then come join us. You know, we're not going to make this a year-long project. We're going to make this about 4 meetings.
Well, I work all day. Every Friday is already booked, but if it was any day but Thursday or Friday, I could come. But I'm definitely happy to connect you to the natural area maintenance folks
All
with
right.
North Clackamas Parks and Rec.
Thank you very much. What if we move the meeting from Friday to Saturday?
I
We-
could do a Saturday.
Then we'll pick a Saturday, okay? Not this first one, but the second one, okay? Oh, actually, I'll talk to Nancy about it. We'll work this out.
Yeah, we'll find a date.
Yeah, my
You
schedule.
all- You all sound interested, and that's the important thing here. So again, this is the Bible of how we conduct affairs under the comprehensive plan. If it isn't been updated and kept current, or look at new alternative ways of dealing with things, it's not going to do the job we need to do on this planet from now on. So, thank you.
Steve, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Nancy, I'm not sure the protocols here, but just to support some of what Jerry has said, the key thing here is that we really want to educate folks in what is possible and to have it be something that is thought of first before the groomscaping that Jerry has referred to. There ought to be, I certainly believe there are ways to utilize some of these sites and do the kind of thing that Jerry is describing without, impacting the purpose and the function that they've been put in place. But I think to do that, you have to have some ordinances. They can be written with some flexibility in them, but you have to have some education that will allow people to think of X first before maybe the traditional way of treating these facilities. So I think that's really what the real end game here is to get some different thinking into how to do this.
Yeah,
You know
the
what?
example we were talking about quite a bit at the meeting last Friday was some of these stormwater facilities. And the purpose of them is to retain the stormwater and to clean it up a little bit. And they do that function pretty well. And so we realized that you're going to have to do maintenance on the insides because otherwise those will grow in and they won't function for what they need to function. But what we're talking about is how they groom the outside, because they plant all these native plants along the outside and then they go in and cut them all down. So, they're like a foot or two tall to make it look very much like a park rather than a natural landscape. And those stormwater facilities, the one on Thayer Road is magnificent and it's big and it attracts all kinds of waterfowl. And so, those could become tourist attractions for the city because people like to watch birds. And if there were places they knew they could go watch birds and it was functioning because the landscaping around it was more natural, then it would attract more birds and that would attract more people because you get a better variety of wildlife.
We will send you a list of the meeting times when we meet again, or when we talk, Nancy, myself, and Steve Williams, and Doug Neely, et cetera, of the meeting times. We'll try to make sure something's available on Saturdays for special people that are important to this whole cause. Thank you for hearing from me and us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. for presenting this.
All right.
Yeah, Chris. Okay. You're saying bye?
No, I
Oh,
got
no,
I gotta
I was just waving goodbye. Thanks.
Okay, all right.
I have to go bye-bye, you guys.
Okay, we'll see you, Jerry.
All right, thank you guys. Good
Yep.
luck with your meeting. Bye-bye.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to say about that? I went to the first meeting and I learned a lot that I didn't realize in terms of how we manage, NRODs and, even some mitigated wetlands, because they're not natural. They were put in, that are required by the developers, but then we don't manage them to be functional wetlands, which is defeating the whole purpose of having developers put in mitigated wetlands. So I really think this is important to do. And obviously, we could do some first attempts at language, and then it needs to go to the city more, because the planning people obviously need to be involved in this and in changing the language too. But I think we could come up with some ideas and then, see if we can get the city commission to tell the planning group that this is something that is worth looking at.
Yeah.
Am I right, Kelly? Am I totally off base, or is that?
No, I think that's exactly right. The direction has to come from the city commission to
Right.
our department, and then we would put it in our work plan.
Right, okay, so, yeah, we just need to do some language tweaking with ideas of what we think that would be a better way to manage these systems so that they're functional ecological systems rather than just pretty things. And so then we can maybe approach the city commission with that and see if they're willing to look at this and think this is important.
May I ask a question, Nancy?
Sure.
Just curious, it sounds like some of this can be addressed through, the NROD code, but then some of it's just the way the stormwater division of the city manages and maintains its properties, which is not governed by our code, really. Have you, or are you aware of Jerry, reached out to the Public Works operations?
I do not know.
folks?
I've only been in this, went to the meeting last Friday and we met for an hour. And Steve, do you know? Because I think you've been involved in this longer.
Oh, you're muted, Steve.
There we go. Yeah. No, I am actually not aware of whether that contact has been made. That's a very good suggestion. I think we need to make that to Jerry and see if we can make those contacts, because but I'm not aware, Nancy, that that's been done.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know if it has been either, but I think that's a good first step, is to reach out to the stormwater people. Who would we be reaching out to?
Well, so Vance Walker is the operations manager for
Okay,
all of Public Works operations, and John Lewis is the director.
right.
Eric Hand is the stormwater supervisor, I think is his title, but he kind of handles everything related to stormwater.
Okay,
So I think that those three folks maybe would be your go-to people at this point.
okay, great. I think that would be a good idea to get them on board early and, see if we could talk to them. I know that that's kind of how stormwater places are managed a lot of places. I was telling the young man who works for me, and he's from Beaverton, and he said it's the same thing in Beaverton. He was walking past, he's walking on a trail, and there was a beautiful stormwater pond, had kinds of birds in it, but they had literally cut all the bushes. It was all native plants, but they had cut them all like a foot high, and he was just kind of appalled by why people bothered to plant native plants and then cut them down so they weren't working. So, it may just be a needed education for a whole group of people. But yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I will
could-
ask Jerry to reach out to that. Yeah, Sam.
I also know Gail Shalom over at WES, the Water Environment Services, and she does a lot of this work, this installation of water retention, runoff catchment projects. Like, this is what she does as a professional with the county. So I'm wondering if she might have some good insight too, not only in terms of like good management practices, but also potentially some policy language.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
something
if
to
you could
consider.
reach out to her, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can do that.
I'll suggest to Jerry to reach out to the other people that Kelly just mentioned. Those are good suggestions, so. There's no point in us spinning our wheels if we're pissing people off. So I think including them at the start of this is much better than throwing things out at them later. That, you know, and we may not know things. They may have things that they have to do that we don't understand, so, but I know there are places that don't cut them all the way down to the ground and manage them, so. Okay. There's no more comments. Shall we move on to the discussion items? And the next one is the Arbor Day celebration.
Yeah, so that staff report was from me. I'm working with Friends of Trees and the Parks Department to put together a really simple little Arbor Day ceremony. The Parks Department indicated that they have some trees sourced and ready. I don't know anything. I don't know what species or how many or what, but they have them. And they will be planting them at Chapin Park at 9 a.m. on April 2nd. Part of a small ceremony with Commissioner Adam Marl will be representing the city commission there.
Mhm.
We all of the Friends of Trees volunteers will be there at the park. They're supposed to arrive between 8:30 and 9 to fill out the registration information and get assigned to a planting team. I don't know if you've ever done Friends of Trees event, but you know, everybody shows up to the main site and then you all kind of go out to various places throughout the city to plant trees. So everyone will be there. So we'll probably do a photo op, you know, with the big group and, you know, with Commissioner Marl and maybe Gary the Oak, Friends of Trees mascot will be there. We've made the request, so we'll see if that happens. I guess the other thing that I'll add is that we just got our 10-year Tree City USA like recognition. And so we have brand new signage that can be posted. I don't know where the current signs are. I think one might be on Singer Hill Road. But so we'll be, the Public Works Department is going to be posting those that say 10 years Tree City USA, and we have a flag as well from Tree City USA. So if Chapin Park has a flagpole, then we can, you know, raise the flag too, potentially. I'm not sure if it does. And then we have an Arbor Day proclamation to be read at the City Commission on April 6th. And that is also when we will announce that we have heritage tree nominations, which I think is your next agenda item. So I'll hold on that. And so I think Nancy, you wanted to talk about this to see if there's anything else we should add.
Right. I know that Dara Kramer did get the Heritage Tree Hero. So Oregon City's gotten a Heritage Tree Hero 2 years in a row. This is really awesome. And so at some point we need to do something for her, like what we did for Dee Dee last year. And I'm not sure, you know, I'm open to ideas. You know, we were under real strict COVID regulations still last year. So a handful of us met at City Hall, but a lot of people didn't come or didn't feel comfortable coming. We actually had a meeting in City Hall. It was just very bizarre. There were 3 of us there and everybody else was on Zoom. It was just strange. But it was kind of nice, you know, and so it'd be nice to do something and maybe do something at Gardner Middle School, because, you know, the students are so instrumental in this. And I think a really important part of this saving this tree. So I think it'd be nice to do something at the school. And I'm sure there's all kinds of red tape to get permission to go onto school property anymore and do something, but it'd be nice if we could figure out a way to do something for her at the school so her students could be part of the award ceremony.
I also reached out to the Parks Foundation group, or their secretary, Carla Laws, who nominated Dara. And so I kind of pitched it to them to say, like, do you want to do anything with it? And they were interested, or the feedback I heard was they wanted to do something during an Arbor Day celebration, which might be easier to get the students to come to us versus us going to the schools, which are very, regimented
True.
for a good reason, in terms of like who can come and not come. So they want to keep track of who's coming and going. So I think it makes sense to have an Arbor Day celebration that the students can come to. And we can do photo ops at the school, of course. But Dara herself said she's very flexible. She doesn't have any strong preferences herself. She's happy to do the way we did it with DD last year, where we had an NRC meeting, but then the NRC was the nomination body. So in this case, I really wanted to pitch it back to the Parks Foundation group to get their involvement, since they were the nominating party. So no definitive plans yet, but definitely they want to be involved. And so I think if we were able to tack on an award presentation during that Arbor Day planting party, that would kind of round out the event a little bit. It would be a good opportunity with all the people there, and present it. And then we could invite the parks group. We can invite Dara and her, colleagues and students to come, especially if it's on a weekend day where people are free. So that's an option.
I think that's an
Or
excellent,
proposal.
I think it's an excellent suggestion, actually. And, we coordinated it last time because we had nominated DD, but, we wrote a letter of support for Dara, but, Parks is who actually nominated it. So, but I like that idea of incorporating into the Arbor Day
Is
celebration.
that possible?
Yeah, I was going to ask Kelly, is this
Kelly,
good? This work?
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Can we add another agenda item?
So we would invite, is it Dara, you said?
Yeah, yeah.
I saw that, so that's a state award, the Heritage Tree Hero, is that right? Yeah, so I mean, if you all want to invite her and have a ceremony to celebrate the Heritage Tree Hero Award, at the same time, as the Chapin Park tree planting, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the more the merrier. I'm not, I think, we're just trying to make sure we do something, so like, and with our staffing, we're kind of able to do a minimum amount of something, right? But we're happy to do more if other folks want to join in.
Sam, do you have connections on parks and you want to invite them, tell them that's very open and that we'd love to see that? And so.
Yeah, I can just say so I had told them that there is an Arbor Day celebration developing. It's not yet firm, but it sounds like it's welcome to add that as an agenda item to the event. And so I just would want, Kelly, if you could tell me the date again. And I heard at Chapin Park, but I can tell them the date and the location, and that it's a planting event that Friends of Trees is hosting, and but we're kind of using it as a vehicle for our Arbor Day celebration. So we can just kind of layer more things in it.
As we're sitting here, I just realized that Steve is on Prac. So aren't you on Parks, Steve?
Well, yes, yes, am I muted again? No, I'm not muted again.
Oh, you're
Yes.
good.
Right, yes.
Like we're talking about getting a hold of Parks and there's Steve sitting there. So.
Well, yeah, I think the best, I'm not sure, again, I'm still learning how all the right protocols here, but I don't know whether that involves going as far as Kendall or Kendall Reed or not. I don't know for sure. but I could ask that question, I guess.
Yeah, the Parks Department is involved, you know, people that work for Kendall Reed, so I'm sure he's aware. Yeah, so I think that that's probably taken care of, that the Parks Department knows what's going on, but if you, were you talking about the Parks Foundation, Samantha?
I forget who the name of the actual group, but I thought it was the Parks Foundation,
The
not the
Oregon City
PrAC.
Parks Foundation. Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's the Parks Foundation.
Okay.
So I can pass it along to them, but I'm glad a member of the PrAC is here. Anyway, because we're looking at the same thing.
There's too many part things. I'm all confused.
But yeah, I can loop in all the people into like one email and just, or at least I can forward it to the foundation group, and they can, if Kendall's already involved, then that person can loop in the PrAC. So I would, more the merrier, as Kelly said, but definitely I do want to send the proposal to them and make sure that they're happy with it at least. And I'm sure Dara would be happy too. And we can invite all the cool people to come, and then we'll have we'll have an event to present the award to Dara.
So there's an email that Nancy, I think we sent the information to Nancy, and Nancy, you sent it out to the other NRC members on March 1st. So that's the email that has the date and time and information. Samantha, if you feel free to use that. So I can try to, we might need to have like a little ceremony agenda or something. So just, if you could keep me in the loop so that I can, you know, make sure that everyone that needs to know what's happening knows, especially like, you know, Commissioner Morrill and people who are coming to be part of it. Thank
Great.
you.
That's great.
And Nancy, if when you get a little more detail, a little more information, if you could send that to me, then I can share it with our PrAC group to get a little broader exposure. Yeah.
Okay. I know that Roger was involved in the nomination, but I don't know. I know he did some of the final editing on the letter. That's as far as I know. So I know that PrAC was somewhere involved. So, but I'm not sure where. But yeah, I'll send stuff to you to make sure that gets out.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we move on to Heritage Tree nominations?
Yeah, I have just a really brief update for you. Okay, so we have 7 Heritage Tree nomination applications. None of them are currently complete. So they're missing little pieces of information. So that's why they haven't been added to your agenda yet. But we're hoping, I think at least a handful of them are close. And so we hope to be able to get the rest of the information in the next few weeks. And whatever we get in before your April meeting, we'll add to your April agenda.
Okay.
So that includes 3 trees at city parks, the one at Gardner Middle School, one in the right of way next to Rose Farm on Rylands Lane and Holmes Lane.
Okay.
And then 2 on private property. So let's see, we asked for the missing information by April 1st. And so we'll have a handful of applications to bring you in April, and if whichever ones aren't complete by that date, we'll just, you know, bring them to you when they're ready. And the 3 that are in city parks, those go to the PrAC before they come to you.
Right.
And so Steve, you might see that on your March agenda, if all the pieces fall into place.
Mhm.
And if not, then, you know, you'll see them in the future. So I think that's it on heritage trees.
Okay. And I figured things got lost in the wash with all the changes of staff at planning. I just figured things that wasn't at the top of the agenda when people are trying to learn what their jobs are. So,
Yeah, but we're at least we have them.
right.
And they're gonna be processed, yeah.
I know when we forwarded the message, the cover letter and the new street tree list to the city commissioners and the mayor, I got an email from Denise McGriff going, but what about heritage trees? So, well, we're working on it. We can only do things when we get them. So, but okay, so that's good. I'm hoping to see heritage trees soon. Any questions or comments on the heritage trees? We have a street tree update and then we're pretty close to the end here, so.
So my update on street trees for you is that the new planting diagram that you agreed on with the Public Works Department, that is now like in place and officially what they're using for the planting diagram. The list has been forwarded to the City Commission with your cover letter, and we are working to find a date to get on a work session agenda for the City Commission.
So one or several of us could go to that and, they
Yeah.
could ask questions about, like, Sam, I'd love to have you there because you did a lot of the groundwork, I mean, I'll go with you unless it's sometime when I can't, but
Yeah.
we could talk to them about how we made these decisions and why we put things on hiatus and our thinking of, our recommendation that they not require replanting in those less than 3 foot wide strips and not make them plant on private property and not fine them for it. So, and we'll have to defend that, I think, but I'd love to see that language change because, I'm walking through my neighborhood now, like looking at how wide all the parking strips are with the trees in them. And so a lot of really narrow ones, let me tell you. So. Okay, I think we're good. Future agenda items. Does anybody have any future agenda items that we can think of right now? I know we had stuff in the past, but I have no idea what it was anymore. I'd have to dig out old minutes and. Yeah, Sam.
Where are we at with the noxious weed list?
That's going to be something that we just need to sit down with somebody at Public Works, the people who actually manage those weeds, and see what we can do. I don't have the time to change all the names to the correct names. I'd like to see us be able to just accept the county list that's continually updated, and then maybe like once a year, Oregon City that would be the new thing. And if there were developers working on plans under the old list, they wouldn't have to adhere to the new list. I think that'd be fair, but the fact that the names we have for probably a good third of the species on there are completely incorrect. And so, because they've changed species names, and then there's new things that really should be added. But I don't know what most of their old plants are, so I can't, and I don't know what the new names for those things are without taking like hours and hours and hours of work to change those, because it's a pretty extensive list. And so I think at this point, and the last time I talked to, I think it was still when Laura was here, I mentioned it to her, and she said she really thought that was something we should talk with somebody from the actual hands-on, boots on the ground people who are managing those weeds in terms of what would be beneficial for them and what they would like to see done. Because there's a lot of new things that are showing up that, like, Italian arum's not on it at all, and it's everywhere. So, yeah.
So one more item, I had to go, I remember I had something, but then I made a note to remind myself and I had to find it. So the reminder is about canopy cover as a part of our comprehensive plan update. I don't know if it's in there. Maybe Kelly, you could remind me or refresh me if it's a part of the comprehensive plan of talking about maintaining canopy cover as a way to protect and maintain large canopy trees in the city, because you can plant, hundreds of trees every year, but if your canopy can still shrink, right? as you, as development comes in or as ice storms come in. And but planting is not a clear benchmark indicating the health and vibrancy of your canopy, and the benefits that that brings. So I was curious, Carly, if you had any thoughts about that, or if we can talk about it in a future meeting.
Canopy, so is this maybe a draft goal or policy in the new comprehensive plan language?
Yeah, I'm curious if it's addressed beyond just like streams and riparian
guess.
areas where often we see that language of
Mhm.
canopy cover to reduce,
Yeah.
stream surface temperatures. But, the same benefit of streams over water can apply over pavement and houses and, the built environment. So I'm hoping that we can apply similar language, or, modified, but in effect, maintaining that canopy, that importance of canopy in the built environment.
Right. Yeah, so the comp plan current draft language, which I may have been kind of wordsmithed by now, I'm not sure. It says it's very high level, right? The comp plan, protect and enhance the urban forest tree canopy. So that's there in the comp plan. But then it's really like, how does our code work to accomplish that? Yeah, so I mean, that's something that the planning department could definitely talk to you about in the future. Because our code is not based on canopy coverage.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nancy and others, would that be of interest to talk about?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get somebody in. Is that John Lewis or is that?
Well, it'd probably be planning. If we're
Yeah.
talking about how we regulate tree removal and replacement,
Right,
then it would be planning.
okay, so yeah, we should look at that for a future. And the other thing, like what I think of, and it's probably a little early to start talking about this for next year, but Sam has found that there's grants that we could acquire to do a bigger Arbor Day celebration that would actually help fund it. And we always think about it in like January or February meeting, and we just don't have time to scramble to get anything done. So I think maybe we should put this on an agenda for like maybe sometime in the fall to start talking about ideas. So, I think it would be good to actually do something next year to do that, about Arbor Day and talk about what would we want to get a grant for to fund. And I think it's because I'd like to see us do a bigger celebration. And it's interesting because we're Tree City and I come into Oregon City from 2 different directions regularly. And I have never seen a Tree City sign when I'm entering the city, but I drive into McMinnville every day. And, when I go to work and every morning on 99, there's a big Tree City sign. And I'm like, how come we don't have one of those? So, it just seems like, I don't know where, you said something about Singer Hill or Singer Creek. Is it Singer Hill or Singer Creek?
I think it's on Singer Hill Road, right, coming up from downtown.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's
if
not a
we have-
main way into the city though. I mean, I'm coming in
Yeah.
on 99, which is a major route, and there's nothing telling me
Mhm.
there's a Tree City.
I'm curious if there's one on Beaver Creek, like right as it comes into 99, like where that from, like, where it comes down from 213 and you're on Beaver Creek and then it hits Malala. I'm curious if I have a memory of at least 2 signs.
Okay.
And I know there's one on Singer Hill, and I'm curious if the other one is on Beaver Creek near like Forest Apartments over there, like kind of
Mhm.
near where First Street is. So that's my vague memory,
I
which is
don't
not
remember
really
seeing
helpful.
one there, but I'm pretty.
I
unobservant
agree
a
we
lot
could
of the
use
time.
better signage, and so we know people.
It'd be nice having one
ODF.
coming from the wagon trains and maybe have one coming,
I think we have one.
by the
Don't
wagon.
we?
train?
On Washington Street? Maybe there's another one down there.
Yeah,
I can
so-
ask at ODF if they've got like another sign floating around from the Arbor Day Foundation.
Right. It's just bizarre to me to drive by Oregon. Like, I don't even know there is one in Oregon City. So it's nice to hear that there are, but yeah. And I don't know how many cars actually go up Singer Hill Road compared to some of the other ways in and out of the city. I think, by the wagon trains off of, the bypass and maybe on 99 itself. Because even if you don't come into Oregon City, you're going to see, you're going to the edge of Oregon City and you're going to see that. And I think that gets a lot more traffic and would be a lot more seen by a lot of people. But, yeah, signage would be nice to see. Maybe we should do a grant, get more signs. It'd be something we could put in there, but we'll talk about that. Okay, anything else for future items?
Not future items, but I figured I might want a little bit of coordination to talk about the Arbor Day event coming up.
Okay.
Since that's going to happen before our next meeting.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just curious, when the reward is presented, should we do that as a committee, or do you think that the commissioner will be doing that, or is that yet to be determined?
Well, the last time it was given, we had nominated, so we kind of gave the award. There's somebody who comes from the Heritage Tree Foundation who gives the award, but we were all there, or we were, all invited to be there because we had nominated Dee Dee, but we didn't do the nomination this time. So I'm sure the Heritage Tree Foundation is probably coordinating with whoever made that nomination to do it. So that's why we need to be in touch with Parks. Oh,
That would be me.
Yeah.
now we know.
So
who's
I'm
with us.
also,
Okay.
so I'm on the board that decides who gets the award. And we only had one nomination this year. So it was kind of a shoe-in for Dara. So yeah, I'm the person that's kind of connecting the dots. But yes, the person that officially, hands over the award is from the Oregon Heritage Tree Council. It's not going to be me. But that person will come here and she'll hand off the plaque, and lots of handshaking and photo taking will be done. So, and
Cool.
speech making and so on. So yeah, definitely inviting the Parks Foundation that nominated Dara, and any students and colleagues that are family members of hers, we'd want to welcome or invite.
Yeah.
So yeah. Did you have other questions or?
No, just a comment. I think it's going to be great optics for the Heritage Tree program, just in general, just to blend that with the Arbor Day celebration. And just wanted to know, informally, who plans on going. I'll probably be back in town for that.
I'm not sure what my schedule is. I've got a whole bunch of field trips on weekends coming up in April. And so
Oh,
I
fun.
don't know whether I have one. I've got one this Saturday, and then I've got 2 in April, and I can't remember what weekends those are actually
Yeah.
on. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not on a
checked
field
the
trip, I
event
will go.
calendar. Gotcha. It is a morning event, just FYI.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to wrap up by noon. That helps to know. Cool. Yeah, that's it for me.
Anything else for the good of the order? Then I will call this meeting to a close. And we'll see you all in a month if I don't see you at the Arbor Day celebration.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Yep.